This is a training on integrated community supports. It's a brand new service through Waiver Reimagined that was introduced January 2021. Counties across Minnesota are learning a lot about the service since it is new, developing consistent approaches, talking about how it can be implemented. As I mentioned, Integrated Community Supports is a new service that wasn't available on the waiver prior to Waiver Reimagined. It does not meet the criteria of a person's own home because it is delivered in a provider-controlled environment where the provider has direct or indirect control by holding the lease. Integrated Community Support is available to individuals receiving support currently through the CADI waiver or the brain injury waiver, effective January 1st, 2021. New providers are coming online. Initially, there weren't any providers, but they're gradually enrolling. This is a service that will be available to individuals receiving services through developmental disabilities and community alternative care in 2023. What does a setting look like for integrated community supports? It must be a multi-family unit, and so consider an apartment as an example. The person receiving services would rent or sublease from the provider, so the provider has direct or indirect control. The living unit that the people are staying in is self-contained, with residential unit with living, sleeping, eating, cooking, and bathroom area. A person who lives in an integrated community support setting is not required to receive integrated community support, so that person receiving services can have a housemate, roommate, friend stay with them. However, the person who chooses integrated community supports may only receive services from the provider who controls the setting. Here's some more basic information regarding integrated community supports. The service covers training and support to meet the person's individualized assessed needs and the goals in at least one community living service category. Integrated community support is a daily rate that uses a newly developed residential rate methodology specifically for the service. The rate methodology uses a base plus model. We'll be talking about that in the next slide. Integrated community supports does not include shared staffing. All services are to be delivered one-to-one. Helping a person to pay for rent and food is offered through the program Housing Support, which was formerly Group Residential Housing. Housing support is a service most commonly used in foster care or group home community residential settings in the past. The lead agency would need to approve the agreement or the contract with the provider in order to provide supported housing funding. Integrated community support providers must have a contract with Henry County to receive housing support funding. The contract must be in place before services are delivered. How does base plus model work? There are 8 hours that are included in the base rate. Is scheduled to allow for the administrative costs for programs and to have on-site staffing available at the setting for incidental and unplanned needs. The 8 hours is shared among all the people receiving integrated community supports at the setting. Integrated community supports can be provided up to 24 hours a day. When authorizing the service, your case manager must take into account the individual's assessed needs or their individualized needs and authorize the number of individual staffing hours necessary to meet those needs. Any supports or supervision needed for overnight would be authorized as one-to-one service hours, either within integrated community supports or other allowed services. Services that can and cannot be authorized with integrated community supports. The first group is services that could be authorized with integrated community supports. An individual may choose to receive the following services from a different provider, including home-delivered meals, homemaker services, personal care attendant services as long as the services aren't duplicative of what integrated community support services is providing or the person is receiving. A person may not receive the following services if they are choosing integrated community supports, because these services are more related to, many of them are more related to services in my own home, which is a more independent model. Community residential services, which represents a group home, family foster care. Family residential services, customized living, including 24-hour care to customized living, 24-hour emergency assistance, individualized home supports, night supervision, respite, or caregiver living expenses. Those are all not allowed if the person's using integrated community supports. What are the typical populations served using integrated community supports? The following are some examples. Somebody who's independent, but who benefits from having support 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Somebody who may have challenges with success in independent apartment settings. Somebody who doesn't require the level of support available through corporate foster care or customized living, which is much more comprehensive. Somebody who benefits from intermittent support with mental health symptoms as an example, who doesn't require intensive support available in a customized living or foster care environment. It may be somebody who has unpredictable or intermittent physical health needs. Examples might be cerebral palsy, multiple sclerosis, sickle cell anemia, or somebody who is learning skills to increase their independence. A couple examples. This is example number 1, referring to Bob. Bob is on the CADDY waiver, living in a corporate adult foster care setting. Bob has a positive support plan due to verbal and physical aggression, drinking, and isolating himself that the foster care home staff follow. He has been stable on his medications for 2 years, but needs to have his medications monitored. Bob has told his case manager several times that he wants to move out of the corporate adult foster care and live by himself. Bob still needs support in the following areas: his positive support plan, taking his medication, not drinking, and isolating himself, especially when his anxiety increases. Bob could move into an integrated community support setting where he has his own living unit and would receive integrated community support services from the provider who controls the setting and can provide intermittent support as well as scheduled support for preparing his medication and monitoring the administration of his medication. A second example, referring to Sally. Sally is currently in a transitional care unit since surgery on her hip and her knee. Sally's 57 years old and she's on the brain injury waiver. She's been on the brain injury waiver for the last 3 years. She has depression and difficulty being around people due to anxiety. Sally will be discharging from the transitional care unit in a few weeks. She did live in her own apartment for a year, but her depression caused her to withdraw. She did not allow contact with her individualized living skills worker. Her case manager moved her to a customized living setting where she had housemates. Sally didn't like this type of living arrangement because there were too many people living with her. She wants to be discharged to her own apartment and doesn't want roommates or housemates. She will need continued physical therapy after she moves, medication management, help with dressing and showering that will need to be reevaluated as she continues with her physical therapist. She needs assistance with grocery shopping and some meal preparation and reminders with money management. Sally could move to an integrated community support setting and have intermittent and scheduled support from the provider, but have her own apartment in the building. For more information, you could Google Minnesota Department of Human Services Waiver Reimagined. Information includes frequently asked questions and responses from the Department of Human Services. There's also some attached documents in this email referring to integrated community supports.